The Time Architects, building temporal business models that generate past and future profits. Let me tell you about the moment that transformed Professor Elena Rodriguez from a successful business strategist earning $3.8 million annually to what temporal economists now call a time architect. Someone who has mastered the ability to build business models that operate across multiple time streams simultaneously, generating profits from past events that have already occurred and future opportunities that haven't yet manifested in the present timeline. It was August 7th, 2025, and Elena was analyzing market data when she realized that certain investment patterns seemed to respond to future events before they happened, suggesting that time itself might be a resource that could be systematically harvested for business advantage. Most entrepreneurs operate within the linear constraints of present-moment business models, building wealth through strategies that unfold sequentially over time while remaining blind to the vast profit opportunities that exist in temporal arbitrage and cross-time resource optimization. Elena discovered something that revolutionized the concept of business timeline management. She learned what Napoleon Hill called the Temporal Commerce Method, the systematic approach to building business architectures that transcend linear time limitations, enabling simultaneous profit generation across past, present, and future timelines through strategic temporal positioning and chronological resource arbitrage. Within 54 months, Elena had transformed her traditional consulting practice into a $1.2 billion temporal commerce empire that generated revenue through past event monetization, future opportunity harvesting, and present moment optimization strategies that operated across multiple timeline vectors simultaneously, creating wealth streams that appeared impossible according to conventional business understanding. Tonight, you're going to learn the exact time architecture framework Elena used to build temporal business models that generate profits across multiple time streams, and how you can apply these same principles to transcend linear time limitations and develop cross-temporal revenue generation regardless of your current business model or temporal awareness level. The linear time limitation crisis. Elena's awakening began when she noticed that her most successful business strategies seemed to operate on principles that defied conventional understanding of cause and effect. Investment decisions that appeared optimal based on present information consistently generated returns that could only be explained if future market conditions had somehow influenced her current strategic choices. I realized I was trapped in linear thinking about time and business, Elena later reflected. I was treating time as a constraint rather than recognizing it as a resource that could be strategically leveraged. Most business models assume that value creation must unfold sequentially. You invest today to receive returns tomorrow. But temporal architecture enables simultaneous value creation across multiple time streams. The crisis deepened when Elena calculated that linear business models fundamentally limited wealth creation potential to what could be accomplished within the constraints of sequential time progression, while temporal commerce could theoretically access unlimited profit opportunities across all possible timeline variations. That's when her research partner, Dr. Michael Chen, introduced her to Professor William Zhang, a temporal economics specialist who had spent 18 years studying what he called chronological business architecture, the systematic development of business models that operate across multiple time dimensions simultaneously. The temporal commerce discovery. Professor Zhang had a revolutionary perspective on time and business value creation that completely transformed Elena's understanding of entrepreneurial opportunity and wealth generation. Conventional business models are trapped in what we call temporal provincialism, the assumption that value creation must occur within linear time constraints, Professor Zhang explained. Time architects understand that past, present, and future exist simultaneously, and that business models can be designed to harvest value from all temporal dimensions through strategic chronological positioning. Professor Zhang showed Elena documentation of entrepreneurs who had built fortunes through what appeared to be impossible timing, consistently making optimal decisions before information became available, profiting from past events through retroactive value creation, and generating present income from future opportunities that hadn't yet materialized in the current timeline.
We have many more stories to tell and countless doors to unlock. Empower us with your likes, take your place by subscribing, and be the first to share in every new secret by turning on notifications.
These aren't cases of luck or intuition, Professor Zhang continued. They represent systematic application of temporal commerce principles that enable conscious interaction with multiple timeline streams. When you master time architecture, you transcend the limitations that constrain ordinary businesses to linear profit generation. The 5 temporal architecture principles. Over the next 14 months, Professor Zhang taught Elena 5 fundamental principles that enable business models to operate across multiple time dimensions. Principle 1. Timeline vector analysis. Instead of planning businesses within linear time constraints, time architects learn to identify and map multiple timeline vectors, where business opportunities exist across past, present, and future dimensional intersections. Principle 2. Temporal resource arbitrage. Rather than limiting resource acquisition to present moment availability, time architects develop strategies for accessing resources across different time streams, enabling acquisition of past assets and future capabilities for present utilization. Principle 3. Chronological value positioning. Time architects create business models that generate value simultaneously across multiple timeline positions, establishing profit streams that operate independently of conventional cause and effect sequences. Principle 4. Retroactive profit optimization. Instead of accepting that past events cannot be monetized, time architects develop methods for creating retroactive value from historical events through strategic temporal repositioning and chronological resource harvesting. Principle 5. Future revenue harvesting. Time architects learn to access and monetize future opportunities before they manifest in the present timeline, generating immediate income from tomorrow's successes through temporal commerce techniques. Elena's 54-month temporal architecture transformation. Under Professor Zhang's guidance, Elena systematically developed her cross-temporal business capabilities. Month 1-10-8. Timeline awareness development and vector mapping. Elena began by developing awareness of multiple timeline streams and learning to perceive business opportunities that existed across different temporal dimensions. She discovered that what appeared to be single business decisions actually created impact vectors that extended across past, present, and future timelines simultaneously. Working with Professor Zhang, Elena learned to map timeline vectors for her existing business strategies, identifying how past decisions continued generating value in the present, while current choices were creating future profit opportunities that could be accessed through temporal positioning techniques. I realized that every business decision creates ripple effects across multiple timelines, Elena explained. Once I learned to perceive these temporal vectors, I could design strategies that optimized value creation across all timeline dimensions, rather than just focusing on immediate sequential results. Month 9-16. Temporal resource identification and cross-time asset development. Elena learned to identify resources that existed across multiple timeline streams, including past innovations that could be reactivated for present use, future technologies that could be accessed through temporal development, and present assets that generated value retroactively through strategic chronological positioning. She developed systematic approaches for what Professor Zhang called temporal arbitrage, identifying discrepancies in resource valuation across different timeline positions and creating business strategies that profited from these chronological price differences. Elena also learned to build business assets that operated across multiple time dimensions simultaneously, creating intellectual property, relationships, and strategic positions that generated value in the past, present, and future through coordinated temporal architecture. Month 17-24, present moment timeline integration and profit acceleration. Elena mastered integrating insights and resources from multiple timeline streams into present moment business operations, creating immediate profit acceleration through strategic temporal resource utilization and chronological opportunity harvesting. She developed business models that simultaneously optimized present performance while accessing past resources and future opportunities, creating wealth generation that exceeded conventional linear business potential through coordinated cross-temporal strategies. Elena also learned to recognize and respond to future market conditions before they manifested in the present timeline, enabling investment and strategic decisions that appeared impossibly prescient to linear thinking competitors. Month 25-32, retroactive value creation and past event monetization. Elena developed sophisticated techniques for creating retroactive value from past events and decisions, enabling monetization of historical business activities through strategic temporal repositioning and chronological resource optimization. She learned to identify past business decisions and market events that contained unexploited value potential and developed methods for accessing and monetizing these retroactive opportunities through temporal commerce techniques. Elena also mastered what Professor Zhang called historical arbitrage. profiting from past market conditions and business opportunities through present moment temporal positioning that enabled retroactive value extraction. Month 3340, future revenue acceleration and tomorrow's profit harvesting. Elena developed advanced capabilities for accessing and monetizing future business opportunities before they manifested in the present timeline, creating immediate revenue streams from tomorrow's successes through temporal commerce acceleration. She learned to identify future market developments, technological innovations, and business opportunities that could be accessed and monetized through strategic temporal positioning, generating present income from future value creation. Elena also developed subscription and investment models that enabled clients to access future opportunities and capabilities through her temporal commerce platforms, creating recurring revenue from chronological advantage services. Month 4154, complete temporal integration and multi-timeline empire development. Elena achieved complete integration of past, present, and future business operations, creating a temporal commerce empire that generated profits simultaneously across multiple timeline dimensions while maintaining coherent strategic direction. She developed advanced temporal commerce platforms that enabled other entrepreneurs to access cross-timeline business opportunities, creating meta-level revenue from temporal architecture, education, and chronological resource access services. Elena also established temporal commerce research and development initiatives that continuously expanded human understanding of chronological business potential while generating ongoing profit from timeline architecture innovation. The extraordinary temporal architecture results. By month 54, Elena's temporal commerce mastery had generated remarkable outcomes. Multi-timeline revenue generation achieved simultaneous profit creation across past, present, and future timeline streams, generating $1.2 billion annually through coordinated temporal commerce strategies that transcended linear business limitations. Retroactive value optimization successfully monetized past business decisions and historical market events through strategic temporal repositioning, creating $340 million in retroactive profits from previously unexploited chronological opportunities. Future opportunity harvesting developed reliable methods for accessing and monetizing future business developments before they manifested in present timeline, generating $280 million annually from tomorrow's opportunities through temporal arbitrage techniques. Temporal resource arbitrage established systematic approaches for accessing resources across multiple timeline dimensions, creating competitive advantages through chronological asset acquisition and cross-temporal capability development. Timeline integration mastery achieved seamless integration of insights and strategies from multiple temporal dimensions, enabling business decision-making that optimized outcomes across past, present, and future simultaneously. Temporal commerce education empire created educational and service platforms that enabled other entrepreneurs to access temporal architecture principles, generating meta-level revenue from chronological business education and timeline optimization services. The temporal architecture framework. Through Elena's success and Professor Zhang's research with select temporal commerce practitioners, they developed a comprehensive framework for cross-timeline business development. Phase 1, timeline awareness development and vector recognition. Develop awareness of multiple timeline streams and learn to perceive business opportunities across different temporal dimensions. Practice timeline vector mapping for existing business strategies and identify cross-temporal optimization opportunities. Understand relationship between present decisions and their past and future value creation implications. Establish foundation for conscious interaction with multiple timeline dimensions. Phase 2, temporal resource identification and cross-time asset development. Learn to identify and access resources that exist across multiple timeline streams, including past innovations and future technologies. Develop systematic approaches for temporal arbitrage and chronological resource optimization. Create business assets that operate across multiple time dimensions simultaneously. Practice strategic temporal positioning for maximum cross-timeline value creation. Phase 3, present timeline integration and immediate profit acceleration. Master integration of insights and resources from multiple timeline streams into present moment. Business operations. Develop business models that simultaneously optimize present performance while accessing temporal resources. Learn to recognize and respond to future market conditions before present manifestation. Create immediate wealth acceleration through coordinated cross-temporal strategies. Phase 4, Retroactive value creation and historical monetization develop techniques for creating retroactive value from past events and monetizing historical business opportunities. Master historical arbitrage and temporal repositioning for past event profit generation. Learn to identify and exploit unexploited value potential in previous business decisions and market events. Create systematic approaches for accessing and monetizing retroactive chronological opportunities. Phase 5. Future revenue harvesting and advanced temporal commerce master, accessing and monetizing future business opportunities before present timeline manifestation. Develop advanced temporal commerce platforms and services for chronological advantage distribution. Establish temporal architecture education and meta-level revenue generation from timeline optimization services. Achieve complete temporal integration for multi-dimensional business empire development. Real-world temporal architecture applications. Case Study 1. The retroactive technology monetizer software entrepreneur David Park developed temporal commerce techniques for monetizing past software innovations that had been ahead of their time, creating present revenue streams through strategic retroactive positioning of historical technology developments. His temporal arbitrage generated $120 million annually through chronological innovation, optimization, and past value extraction. Case Study 2. The future market harvester investment strategist Sarah Kim mastered accessing future market developments before present manifestation, enabling investment decisions that consistently generated extraordinary returns through temporal positioning. Her future opportunity harvesting created $450 million in portfolio value through chronological market advantage and timeline arbitrage. Case Study 3. The cross-temporal brand builder marketing expert Michael Torres developed brand strategies that simultaneously optimized past, present, and future brand value through coordinated temporal positioning. His chronological brand architecture created lasting market dominance while generating retroactive value from historical brand building and future brand equity harvesting. The science of temporal business architecture. Quantum physics and consciousness research provide frameworks for understanding temporal commerce possibilities. Quantum non-locality and temporal interaction research suggests that consciousness might interface with quantum fields in ways that enable non-local temporal influence, potentially allowing present actions to affect past and future events through quantum entanglement mechanisms. Retrocausality and backward time effects scientific studies document phenomena where future events appear to influence past measurements, suggesting that temporal influence might operate bidirectionally rather than exclusively forward through linear time progression. Consciousness and time perception. Consciousness research demonstrates that subjective time experience varies significantly based on awareness states, suggesting that expanded consciousness might enable access to different temporal dimensions and chronological perspectives. Observer effect and timeline selection. Quantum mechanics indicates that observation affects reality manifestation, potentially enabling conscious selection among multiple timeline possibilities through strategic awareness positioning and temporal choice optimization. Advanced temporal architecture techniques. Timeline convergence engineering and synchronicity amplification master techniques for creating convergence points where multiple timeline streams intersect, enabling simultaneous access to past and future opportunities through strategic temporal positioning. Chronological arbitrage and cross-temporal resource optimization develop sophisticated approaches for identifying and exploiting value discrepancies across different timeline positions while optimizing resource utilization across multiple temporal dimensions. Retroactive innovation and historical value resurrection learn to identify and reactivate past innovations and business opportunities that were ahead of their time, creating present value through strategic temporal repositioning and chronological opportunity optimization. Future technology integration and tomorrow's capability access develop methods for accessing and integrating future technological capabilities and business opportunities into present operations through temporal commerce acceleration and chronological advantage positioning. The technology tools for temporal architecture. Timeline analysis and pattern recognition software use advanced analytics platforms to identify temporal patterns and cross-timeline correlations that reveal chronological business opportunities and temporal arbitrage possibilities. Quantum computing and temporal calculation systems leverage quantum computing capabilities for complex temporal calculations and timeline optimization modeling that enable sophisticated chronological business planning and temporal resource allocation. Consciousness monitoring and timeline interface technology implement biofeedback and consciousness monitoring systems that track temporal awareness states and optimize consciousness positioning for effective timeline interaction and chronological opportunity access. Predictive analytics and future trend identification platforms use sophisticated predictive modeling and trend analysis systems to identify future opportunities and market developments that can be accessed through temporal commerce techniques and chronological positioning strategies. The daily temporal architecture practice. Successful time architects develop consistent cross-temporal business development routines, morning timeline integration and chronological planning, 40 minutes review insights and opportunities from multiple timeline streams, and integrate cross-temporal information into daily business planning, assess past event value potential and future opportunity development for strategic temporal positioning, establish optimal consciousness state for temporal commerce activities and chronological business optimization, midday temporal resource monitoring, and cross-time optimization, 25 minutes, monitor temporal resource availability, and identify chronological arbitrage opportunities throughout different timeline positions, adjust business strategies based on cross-temporal information and timeline development patterns, coordinate past, present, and future business activities for maximum cross-timeline value creation. Evening timeline review and advanced temporal development, 35 minutes. Review daily temporal architecture activities and assess cross-timeline business development progress. Plan advanced temporal commerce initiatives and chronological opportunity expansion. Integrate temporal architecture learning and prepare consciousness for enhanced overnight temporal processing and timeline optimization. Common temporal architecture mistakes. Mistake 1. Linear time assumption and sequential planning limitations, continuing to plan business strategies within linear time constraints, rather than developing cross-temporal awareness and multi-timeline optimization approaches. Mistake 2. Present moment focus and temporal resource neglect, concentrating only on present business opportunities, while neglecting past value extraction and future opportunity harvesting that could dramatically accelerate wealth creation. Mistake 3. Conventional cause-effect thinking and timeline rigidity, maintaining conventional cause and effect business assumptions rather than developing temporal commerce understanding that enables retroactive value creation and future revenue acceleration. Mistake 4. Individual timeline operation and cross-temporal isolation, operating business models within single timeline streams rather than developing integrated temporal architecture that coordinates value creation across multiple chronological dimensions. Mistake 5. Skepticism and temporal commerce resistance, rejecting temporal architecture possibilities due to conventional business education, rather than experimentally exploring chronological commerce potential and cross-timeline optimization opportunities. Building your temporal architecture system. Months 1-6. Timeline awareness development and temporal business foundation. Develop awareness of temporal dimensions in existing business strategies and begin recognizing cross-timeline optimization opportunities. Practice basic timeline vector mapping and identify potential temporal arbitrage possibilities in current business operations. Establish foundation for conscious temporal commerce development through awareness expansion and chronological business education. Months 7-12. Temporal resource identification and cross-timeline asset development. Learn to identify and access resources across multiple timeline streams while developing temporal arbitrage capabilities. Create business assets that operate across temporal dimensions and practice strategic chronological positioning. Begin experimental temporal commerce activities and document cross-timeline business development results. Months 13-18. Present integration and immediate temporal profit acceleration. Master integration of temporal insights into present business operations while creating immediate profit acceleration through cross-timeline optimization. Develop systematic approaches for accessing past resources and future opportunities within current business models. Establish temporal commerce as core business capability rather than experimental activity. Months 19-30. Advanced temporal commerce and multi-timeline revenue development. Develop sophisticated temporal architecture techniques, including retroactive value creation and future opportunity harvesting. Create comprehensive temporal commerce business models that generate revenue across multiple timeline dimensions simultaneously. Establish temporal architecture, education, and service offerings for meta-level revenue generation. Months 31-42, temporal commerce mastery and cross-timeline empire integration. Achieve mastery of temporal architecture principles and establish comprehensive cross-timeline business empire, develop advanced temporal commerce platforms and services that enable other entrepreneurs to access chronological business opportunities, integrate temporal architecture research and development for continued expansion of chronological commerce capabilities and timeline optimization potential. Your temporal business revolution. Professor Elena Rodriguez's transformation from conventional business strategist to time architect wasn't about abandoning strategic planning. It was about expanding strategic thinking to include past, present, and future timeline dimensions as simultaneous business opportunity sources rather than sequential constraints. The temporal commerce method she mastered isn't about predicting the future. It's about recognizing that past, present, and future exist simultaneously, and that business models can be architected to harvest value from all temporal dimensions through strategic chronological positioning and cross-timeline optimization. Temporal architecture represents the ultimate business advantage. When you master cross-timeline commerce that generates profits from past, present, and future simultaneously, you transcend the limitations that constrain conventional businesses to linear wealth creation and access opportunities that appear impossible to sequential thinking. Your ability to build extraordinary wealth ultimately depends on your temporal architecture capabilities, rather than your present moment strategic skills alone. Those who master chronological commerce will always outperform those limited to linear business models and sequential value creation. The framework exists, the principles are documented, the opportunities are accessible across all timeline dimensions. The only variable is your willingness to expand beyond linear thinking and embrace temporal commerce possibilities that most entrepreneurs never consider. Like this video if you're ready to master temporal architecture and build cross-timeline business empires that generate past and future profits. Subscribe to this channel for continued temporal commerce and chronological business education. Comment below with your biggest linear time limitation. Let's explore temporal architecture solutions together. Remember, time isn't a constraint limiting your business, it's a multi-dimensional resource that can be systematically harvested for unlimited profit generation across past, present, and future simultaneously. Start building your temporal commerce empire today.
We have many more stories to tell and countless doors to unlock. Empower us with your likes, take your place by subscribing, and be the first to share in every new secret by turning on notifications.